What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Forward Progress, presented by Fanduel. We are back with another edition of our prop show with Hitman by my side. I'm Jason Cooper. And again, guys, same thing as the last 2 weeks. We're going to run through each game, talk some specific props in this game, but I want to emphasize this is an interactive show. We want your questions. So if you have any, please drop them in the chat below. And if you're watching this after the live show ends, a couple of you dropped questions last week. We got around to them. Hopefully, whoever was asking about Mahomes over didn't play that over because Hitman was neutral on it. You lost in a heartbreaking way from a couple kneel downs. But a reminder that if you have any questions you're watching after the show ends live, you can drop them in the comment section. I'll be getting around to them Sunday at noon. So reminder, if you're watching this after, drop your questions in the comment section down below. And before we get started, just quickly, you can give some people some time to jump in here. Just going to go over our schedule for next week, because a lot of people have been asking what we're doing over the next 2 weeks leading up to the Super Bowl. Tuesday morning, January 28th, Rob, Suma, Hitman, and Judah. They'll be having a Super Bowl preview show. It'll be pre-recorded, go out live in the morning. Everything you need to know, break down the Super Bowl, and we're going to try and get to you as early as we possibly can. Then, the week after, Monday, February 3rd at 4 p.m., we're going to be doing the same prop show with Hitman. Q&A for the Super Bowl. Same thing as you see here. It's just going to be on Monday, February 3rd. Mark it in your calendar. Then finally, the moment you guys have all been waiting for, Wednesday, February 5th at noon, our prop extravaganza, goes live for 5 straight hours, 30 prop bets, hosted by Rob. If you were here last year, you saw it. If you missed it last year, I think we did pretty well. I think we were up 4 units total on it. It's a great time. Always fun to do. 5-hour live show. Anyways, hopefully that gave enough time for people to jump in the chat. Reminder, any questions on each game, drop them in the comment section or drop them in the live chat. Let's get started with the first game here. Commanders taking on the Eagles. Eagles, 6.5 points favorites. Total is sitting at around 47.5. Hitman, if we talked about this matchup before the playoffs started, we talked about kind of how good it is, how positive it would be for the Eagles in the sense that the passing offense should do very well against Washington's corners and secondary. But I mean, the Eagles passing game has been horrendous this year, this playoffs, averaging 3.9 yards per drop back in the playoffs. Do you kind of see this as a regression spot for the Eagles with like a decent matchup? And if you do, how would you attack that in the prop market? And then also, if you think the Eagles are going to be struggling moving the ball through the air, what kind of what kind of live angle would you look at if they're kind of forced into a passing game where Washington goes up early?
Yeah, so just to be transparent, I bet AJ Brown overs, and the line has moved a little bit. I played a lot. I played 59.5, 60.5, 61.5, some 62.5. 64.5 is more like strong lean territory, but I do think that he's the biggest beneficiary of this matchup for the Eagles. One, we have the Jalen Hurts knee injury, and that's something that I think that everybody can look to attack live, possibly also. The market is about 10 yards lower than what it would normally be. He is going to wear a knee brace for this game. But if you do see that he is moving like semi-similar to what he normally does, you're going to get a good price live on it, just because the pregame line, which a lot of times drives the live line, the live algorithm is what the line closed at. It would be a little bit short if he did look 100% and he's running. So that's just something to keep an eye on live. But I do think that if we can handicap that he's going to have some less rush attempts, that obviously could lead to potentially 2 or 3 more pass attempts that would have normally been a Hurts designed run or a Hurts scramble. I just think AJ Brown's gotten to be too low. And it's literally the perfect matchup for a guy like AJ Brown. Like this year, he has a 38% target share versus man compared to 21% versus zone. And this isn't just like a one-year trend with AJ Brown. Like throughout his career and his Eagles career, he has been significantly better against man coverage. And Washington has shown that they will diversify their game plan based off opponent. They're typically a man coverage team. They're 6th in man coverage for the season. Last week against the Lions, who were really good against man, they played zone. But against the Eagles, they went heavy man in their previous matchups against them. And I think that's going to end up being the game plan again for them. And it just sets up for Jalen Hurts, or excuse me, for AJ Brown.
Mm-hmm.
35% target share last week. Like, his current injury right now, I do think that he's playing at less than 100%, but it's not like it affects his hands. And last week, like, he dropped a 40-yard touchdown pass, and he did get 35% of the target. So I just think that this matchup sets up for maybe some of the Eagles' pass game stuff is a little bit underpriced. Hurts, pass yards, and A.J. Brown. And Brown was, in my opinion, the best way to attack it.
Yeah, but you mentioned Brown is a little high right now at the 64.5 minus 113 over at FanDuel. His reception line 4.5 minus 130 towards the over. And we talked about this kind of all, I don't want to say all year on this show, Hitman, but on the prop show, there were multiple times, multiple weeks where we attacked AJ Brown, where you attacked AJ Brown as a result of him being just a man beater within man coverage. Let's turn around and look towards the comment section. Tons of comments here. And reminder, if you're watching this on Twitter, come over to YouTube, drop your comments, and we'll get around to them. Starting off with Ecolt. Hitman, do you think the Eagles will hit 7 again late? Everyone is in for them except Dean. I don't know who Dean is.
N'Kobe Dean. They're
sorry. I see what they're talking. I thought about better. I was like, who's?
I don't think it'll be a widely available 7. I mean, maybe if you have a lot of outs, I mean, maybe a square shop goes up to 7, but I don't know. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but I kind of think 6 is the number. Is just going to end up being the number for this game.
Yeah. Fully thought Dean was talking about some better out there who was like not. Anyways, I don't know how I messed that up. How does Saquon not run wild like Gibbs last week? Eaton Beaver asking question.
Well, this kind of applies to Zach Johnson's question also about Saquon over 20
hit a home run,
longest rush. And I know Rob mentioned it on Forward Progress 2 days ago, but Washington's been really good on a down-to-down basis in their run defense against Barkley. It's just been the explosive runs that have killed them. So, you know what, Zach? Like, if you put any stock into how the matchups have went this year, and personally, I am a person that does like to put some stock into prior matchups. I could kind of see the longest rush angle, and how does he not run wild like Gibbs last week? It's such a high number, and in that type when you're betting a guy at 127 rushing yards or something, like, you're just making such a strong assumption that the game script is also going to go your way. And I mean, there's a possibility that it doesn't, obviously. So it's not like they're 14-point favorites or anything. Like, there's a possibility that the game script could go against them. So I can't get that high with Barkley. If anything, it's a lean under with me. But to Zach's point, I don't hate the longest rush type look. Maybe it's a good non-correlated parlay that you could bet Barkley. I don't even know if they allow this, but if you will play Barkley over longest rush, but under rush yards at like some crazy odds or something, maybe not the worst look.
I do know that they offered at some books, not at FanDuel, so can't play that here, but maybe that could be a look to look out for if you're shopping around at some other books. Last question here is or a couple more questions here from a wild piglet. Hitman, would it make sense that the Commanders are more likely to win in a game that also hits the over, or is that priced in?
Typically, like a correlated parlay is usually dog to under and favorite to over. I guess I could see Washington, just because of their style of play, it could be more correlated towards over, because it's going to take a Jaden Daniels big game. But at the same time, I think there could be a path to Washington winning and covering this game just by Jalen Hurts not being healthy and being ineffective when he doesn't have the design run game, which leads to an under game. So I don't know. I really don't. I don't see much there personally.
All right, and then last question here from MP. I know you don't mess around with defensive props too much, but with Cosme out on the O-line and Carter 97% snap share, he has to get a sack at plus 140. What are your thoughts on that? Just quickly, Jalen Carter priced right now plus 116 at FanDuel, taking a relatively high limit. It's almost 2,000 to win 2K on FanDuel. So just as a top down, that might be a decent play.
Again, it's not something I originate, so I can't give you a great answer. I was kind of just like thinking earlier. This was just me like spitballing, not even pricing anything, but I was kind of trying to look to see, or I was thinking about maybe I'll look to see if there's anything on Washington over sacks defensively, just because Jalen Hurts took 7 sacks last week, and a lot of this is just a result of him holding on to the ball. And now that you're taking some mobility away from him this week as well, maybe if there's a good price out there on like Washington to have more sacks than the Eagles, or team total sacks Washington over, I could see a handicap behind that. But yeah, I haven't really thought about much, to be honest with you, with anything with like the Eagles defensive line guys getting sacks on Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and MP mentioning in the comments, damn, that got bet down. Tough to see. You had a good look, didn't act on it, and now it's gone. Unfortunate. That's okay. That's why we're here. Hopefully, we can feed you some more plays that you'll be interested in. All right, that wraps it up for this game. Colt, I see your question. We'll get around to it later. Let's get into our next game, though. The Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, this one's going to be a fun one. And just getting prepped for this show and getting prepped for this game, the biggest standout to me is the injury report for the Bills. Tons of injuries on the defensive side. Taylor Rapp is out. Christian Benford trending in the wrong direction. And I just look at this Kansas City passing offense. 2 speedsters and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown. You mentioned it this past week. They're taking up the most snaps at wide receivers. With these injuries on the Bills, do you think that this is a beneficial matchup here for both of these players? And would you lean more so towards their overs?
Yeah, Hollywood Brown is the guy that I was kind of looking at this week, maybe in some alt stuff. He had a really high target share when he was on the field for the Chiefs 2 games in the regular season where he was out there. He was a low snap count, high target share. Yeah, I think that, and I could see him being possibly the biggest beneficiary of it. I do think Taylor Rapp is not going to play. Christian Benford, I'm kind of leaning that he is going to play in this game. But obviously monitor that. But yeah, Hollywood Brown was the guy that I was the most interested in with Chiefs receivers. I mean, we haven't seen much of a sample size on him this year. And when there's uncertainty with guys, that's when you typically want to look maybe more in the alternate stuff.
Yeah.
Is when, and again, he's an explosive player too. Like, he is a guy that is very capable of catching deep passes, and if he goes over, he could go over by a lot. So yeah, he was the guy that I was most interested in taking advantage of with some of the secondary stuff.
Yeah, lined right now 38.5 minus 114. Marquise Brown is in the receiving game. And I mean, like, just we saw it last week. The Houston Texans kind of got carved up a little bit over the middle of the field with Travis Kelce. So I wonder if the Bills are going to be watching that, seeing that, and kind of try and take that away from the Chiefs. And then that completely opens things up for Marquise Brown on top of all the injuries. One more question before I get to the chat, because Rob's kind of mentioned this throughout the playoffs, looking towards receivers in the rushing game and taking their overs. It feels like that's been bet up quite a bit. The only player I could find was Xavier Worthy. Right now, earlier today, his line was at 4.5. I felt like it was a little too high. Looks like it's come down to 3.5 right now at minus 114. Both sides. Hey man, do you have any opinion on Xavier Worthy's rushing yards? We saw him get a carry last game, went for -8 yards. Wish we could play the rush attempts for these players, but could only find rushing yards.
So the reason it got bet down today was a very sharp service sent out his under. It was 4.5 plus money, I believe, and I just kind of think. When these lines on these receivers were opening up in like the wild card round and everything, they were opening up at 1.5 and like 1.5 was usually the number that guys like Jaden Reed, Puka Nacua, Worthy was 1.5 for a while. Once you start getting in the 3.5, 4.5 range for a guy that is probably going to get 1 carry, it starts to get a little dicier. I kind of agreed with that 4.5 under. The 3.5 I'm kind of neutral on. And if it got to 2.5, that's where it would get to the point where I'd start leaning over. If it does get back to 4.5, because I know like that's a popular prop that a lot of people play too. I mean, it was getting bet up this entire week until it got bet down today. If it does get bet back to the 4.5 range, which is very possible, I could see myself looking under on it, to be honest. It's just that a lot of this receiver rush stuff is just starting to get priced in. Like I said, I mean, these guys were 1.5, including Worthy, just recently.
All right, we'll keep an eye out. If we see any other of those, we'll definitely you're going to want to keep an eye out for that because there might be a play there. But yeah, Worthy right now at 3.5, no play, minus 114, both sides. Let's get around to the listeners' questions, starting with Sully 4717. He's asking about Noah Gray, 15 yards. I assume he's talking about his over 14.5 at minus 114 at Fanduel. Hitman, I think you talked a little bit about liking Noah Gray last show. I can't remember if you liked him or didn't like him. What are your thoughts on Noah Gray here?
I bet Noah Gray over 13.5. It was 12.5 for a while. I got some 13.5. 14.5 is more strong lean. I know people look at it and like it's just 1 yard. Like, what is it? But when it's that low of a number, like every yard is valuable. I do. Kansas City ran a lot more 12 personnel than I thought they would last week. I'm not fully confident. If I was fully confident that they'd run as much 12 personnel as they ran last week, I would be betting this over. I'm just not super confident in what they're going to do, to be honest. Like, if you want to play 14.5 small, which is kind of what I did with 13.5, I bet over 13.5 small. If you want to do that and then just monitor live and see what the personnel distribution looks like in the first 2-3 series, and then maybe bet some more live, I'm not opposed to that. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm approaching Noah Gray.
All right, next question here from E. Colt. Hitman, what do you make of the KC rush attack? Pacheco has looked awful. Hunt has looked awful. Both look awful. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that I see out there that are betting Pacheco under right now. What is it down to? 30.5 now?
30.5.
Yeah, it was 33.
Pacheco.
It was 33.5, 32.5 earlier this week. I'm not on board with it, to be honest. I kind of think that Pacheco and Hunt should be priced basically equal. So I kind of lean Pacheco over on 30.5, to be honest with you. But again, it's another thing. Like, I hate to keep saying this about this game, but it's just something with the Chiefs. It's very unpredictable right now what their playoff offense is going to look like, because we know their playoff offense is a lot different than the regular season offense. So I mean, to be honest, I really think it's a hot hand too.
Yeah.
And I think Pacheco's the better player. So I think that he's more likely to get the hot hand during the game. Last week, it was Hunt that got the hot hand. I think Pacheco's a better player. I think he's more likely to get the hot hand, but I haven't bet anything with it. I would just lean Pacheco over.
All right. And then Johnny C's asking if Pacheco's banged up. I guess it's just lingering stuff from his.
Yeah, I know. He had the toe.
Just getting back to.
Yeah, he had the toe injury. I don't think he's been on the injury report this week. I might be wrong on that, though. I don't think so, though. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, there's a chance that he never fully recovered too from the injury that he had, that he was out for 8 weeks, and he's just not himself. I mean, he hasn't been very efficient since he's come back, so I could see that, but I don't know. It's a lot of rambling for me to just say that I kind of lean Pacheco over, but I haven't bet it, and to be honest, I don't think I'm going to bet it.
Carl in the chat asking, what do you guys think of Kincaid overs? Casey seems to struggle against tight ends this week. Is this priced in?
So Kincaid's been getting bet under. His line was at 36.5 at one point. What is he now?
32.5 now.
I kind of lean over on him. There was some talk from some Bills writers, and this wasn't reporting just about that they might run more 12 personnel this week. This is just kind of guys that are close to the team, just kind of handicapping what they think Buffalo will do. So Am I positive that they're going to run more 12 personnel this week? No, but I could see it. I mean, that is the weak spot of the Kansas City defense. So I kind of lean over.
All right, and then final question here from Eaton Beaver. Does Allen rush attempts over have any value? Think he tries to take over the game as it goes on?
It's just
right now,
his numbers just so
9.5.
high. Like
Yeah.
Even like the rush attempts, even the rushing yards is in the high 40s right now. I just think it's priced in.
All right, fair enough. Last, I have like a little. Well, there's one more question in the chat. We'll get around to it, I guess. Then we'll play the little game that I set up for you. Ecolt asking 10-1 SGP. Hurts anytime touchdown. Hurts under 30.5 rushing yards. Hurts over 180.5 passing yards. Brown over 64.5.
If the anytime touchdown stuff is inversely correlated with the rushing yards, then I think that's not bad. Those two angles together, because they're still going to run the tush push, and then the over passing yards with the Brown. Yeah. Again, I have a hard time pricing these same game parlays, but I don't hate the logic behind that.
All right, got the seal of approval from Hitman there. All right, Hitman. Before we head out here, I created like a little game for us to play, and it's more so pretty selfish of me because I have two parlays that are cooking for both games, but I'm missing one leg for them. So I'm going to ask you to finish them for me. I have one of the smartest bettors in the world right here, one of the best prop bettors. Might as well utilize the resources around me. So for the Washington game, I have Washington -2.5. I paired that with Saquon under 125.5. Give me a prop to close out this parlay.
We'll go with the AJ Brown over.
All right.
If Philly gets themselves in a game script where they're down, and if they did get themselves in a game script where they're down, these receivers are too low for Philly. They're at the lowest point that they've been all year. So yeah, if they get in that game script, I mean, maybe even a Brown alternate over too. Like, let's go 80 plus or something. Let's get real crazy.
I love that. Let's get real crazy here. AJ Brown alts 80 plus. That'd be priced at 9-1. I mean, I'll take that. All right. Next game, next parlay that I have put together here. It's the Kansas City Chiefs on the money line. I know, super square. And then Patrick Mahomes under 24.5 rushing yards. What type of
initially I wanted to say the Allen rushing stuff, but I just talked about how it was inflated. I have a hard time doing that because of that. I'd probably go with the guy on Buffalo that I think is, if it gets to a game script, Buffalo's throwing from behind. I'd probably go Kincaid.
All right. Kincaid on the over around 5-1. All right. Thank you for doing that for me, Hitman. I appreciate that. Hopefully some people got some value out of that. And if you got value out of the entire show, please do us a favor. Smash that like button down low. Goes a long way for us here. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. If you made it this far and you're watching this after the fact, after we've gone live, you weren't able to get your questions in, please don't be afraid to drop your questions in the comment section down below. Same thing as last week. I'm going to be messaging Hitman at noon on Sunday. I'm going to be going through all those questions in the chat. He's going to be giving you if he likes it, doesn't like it, or no opinion on it. So please don't be afraid to do that. And a reminder, next time you'll see us live, Sunday, 11 a.m., Rob Pizzola breaking down the two games on the pizza buffet, sharing his sides, his totals, his number on the game, props, and just general discussions about the whole thing. Make sure you don't miss out on that. 11 a.m. Eastern time. Mark it in your calendar on Sunday. And then finally at 6:15, we'll be live for a watch along. Our final watch along of the year. I'm going to be sad because I've been loving doing these Bills and Chiefs watch along. Hey, man, will be there with us for the fourth quarter. Suma will be there. Judah will be there. Feinberg will be there. Be a great way to close out what's been an awesome season. Hopefully we can hit some good parlays pregame. And hopefully Hitman can finally give us a winner live on the show because, listen, you've done so great on the prop show. But, man, the watch-alongs, you've been struggling. But we'll see. I don't mean to throw you under the bus on that one.
I'm just, I gotta, if I don't win on one of the three shows, I gotta hear it from Zola and you. So
I will say, Hitman and I together, we have an unreal record when there's no Rob. So might be the
I
time
think
to tune in.
Pizzola is just a common denominator.
I think so too. We're good.
And everybody else is struggling on forward progress. I honestly think it's him. So
I listen, I don't disagree. So hey, gonna have to tune in to find out. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Don't forget to smash the like button on the way out. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. We'll see you guys in the next one.